Mr. Paul. Thank you. God bless you. Paul Preston, Agenda 21 Radio.
Thanks, Bill. Probably a little unknown secret to all of you, but in 2000-2001 school year, I was the vice principal at Oroville High School. And it was a controversy then because nobody said the Pledge of Allegiance except for a few teachers and the students that were volunteering in the classroom to do it. So thank you very much, I guess, belatedly from Oroville High School, because it's quite an honor. It's something that everybody's getting away from. You go to the national conventions, like for the Libertarians and so on, and they don't say the pledge, and they don't have an American flag on the stage. And all of the Democrats, of course, have stopped wearing American flags. I don't know if you noticed that. To them, the flag represents borders. That's the globalist behind it all. That's the logic. Anyway, that was a great presentation, I thought. Thank you very much. And to the board, congratulations on honoring the Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God. And Sandy, what a great, you should be proud of your son. You know, I really believe that. Anyway, George Runner, I just met him for the first time. He's been on my radio show probably a dozen times. So it's kind of nice to put a face to a personality. And he was a senator when I first started talking to him because I was really concerned about the issue of kindergartners starting out too early, too young for school. And, you know, for me as an educator, I was seeing the other end of that. When kids would come into schools and they'd be 4 years of age in kindergarten, by the time they got to be freshmen, they were just turning 13. Geez, that's awful young. Just turning 13. And so being a freshman at 13 meant you did not have a lot of the skills that maturity gives you of somebody who's 14 when they come in as a freshman. It's a world of difference, absolute world of difference, especially for the girls. Isn't that right? Laverne's going. Thus, that have been in the system, those of us that have been in the system, we've seen this. And I was really, really excited when I found out that George Runner was putting out a bill to correct that, actually. So a number of teachers from around this area, kindergarten teachers, I kind of organized them and had them call in and had them write letters and so on, supporting the bill to change that. And like I just ran through to him and he remembered it vividly, I said, here's the scenario to a kindergarten teacher day one. She looks at her students and she sees 4, 5, and 6-year-olds. Do you know how that is? 4, 5, and 6-year-olds all in one class? It's devastating to the 4-year-olds. It really truly, and totally unfair. That law was changed back in 1992 to go back down to 4-year-olds. Coincidentally, that was 1992, the same year that Agenda 21 came on board. And I really say that that was the first step towards dumbing down our schools in a major, obvious way. I've been through the system enough, I know, I saw it. That was really a turning point. The kids that would come in at 13 as freshmen, young 13-year-olds, I would venture to say 70% ended up in alternative education or just flat dropped out and never made it to their senior year. And the dropout rate from 92 on, you look at it, soared until it's still soaring today. Although the governor, we don't have a high dropout rate in California, which is a complete joke. Dropout rate in California is about 35 to 45%, depending upon where you're at. Still. And they lie like crazy down there right now about it. And I've called them out because I know how to do the calculations for dropout rates. And it's horrible. LA Unified still to this day admits over 50% is their dropout rate. Kids dropping out don't make it in 4 years. It's just unbelievable. So, but anyway, thank you. It's nice to see that coming from within, from students. And also I want to thank your teachers because there was so much pressure on teachers not to say the pledge. And it was only coming from a small nucleus of teachers that were really anti-American. Isn't that right? He's not saying he's a politician. Don't say. I know how that all goes. Okay, I'm going to open up to questions, and I've already planted some seeds. Ricky has a question. Hang on.
My neighbor and I were talking Saturday, I think it was, and he goes, we were talking about the evacuation and everything. He goes, man, thank goodness that DWR had everybody evacuate. And I thought, what? I said, are you kidding me? So I told him about, they didn't know where to flip or fly, actually. And so I told him what came out about it. Sheriff, Honey, said if he wouldn't have walked by and hadn't heard that somebody go, does the sheriff know about this yet? We all might not be here right now. But anyway, that's the perception out there. People don't know. They don't know how bad they were lied to. That's more of a comment than a question. But anyway, but that's a perception. I don't know. Do you guys know any people that think that DWR made that call to evacuate people? And back to they like the Army Corps of Engineers. They only control a little bit of that water. The rest of it's controlled by water districts down south, not even for local water districts. So anyway.
Well, thanks for the question. Yeah, I brought that up because the disinformation has already begun, and I think that the disinformation about the presentations that Sheriff Honey has been making, because people that listen to my show and have listened to the audios, and we created a couple of YouTubes that have pretty much gone viral in some places around the world, actually. You wouldn't believe some of the people around the world that are monitoring what's going on at the dam. And it's kind of interesting, the story is that Sheriff Honey, of course, overheard somebody talking in the headquarters at DWR on the night of the 12th, and I think I've relayed to you my story. I went up there on the 11th and watched the erosion for myself standing there at the spillway. It was just obvious there was erosion, plain and simple. Couldn't get around it. And that was at noontime on the 11th. We're now fast forward to 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 12th. And he walks by an office. He wasn't even going to go to the DWR headquarters. He just thought he'd go and check the scene out because he hadn't heard anything from them. No problems, nothing to see here, just move along. He goes in, checks it out. He says, I'm not useful here, I'm going to leave. Starts walking out the door. And if you've ever been to that office, you get it right away. When you're walking out the front door, there's a big room, planning room on the right-hand side. And he saw somebody with his head in his hands looking at a picture. And he thought, well, that guy looks distressed. I'll walk in and see what's going on. A person next to him says, does the sheriff know about this? And what it was erosion like I saw the day before. Head cutting back towards the weir. And so all of a sudden another meeting happened. They come back in and they tell the sheriff, there's a problem. It's moving at about 30 feet per hour, head cutting back up towards the weir, and we're going to lose the weir. And the sheriff says, what happens then? It's going to be a catastrophic failure. Hundreds of thousands of people could die. Buildings will be destroyed. Oroville will be wiped out, as will towns downstream. So the sheriff's like, really? So he says to them, how many feet away is the head cutting from the weir before this collapses? Oh, Sheriff, glad you asked. It's 30 feet away. He had 1 hour. And again, I don't want the blame game going to because I tried to put a stop to that on my radio show for weeks, people trying to blame the sheriff. Now what we have is these people up here have hired one of the best PR firms in the world to spin. And you're just now starting to hear the spin. I'm getting this on my radio show. I'm getting it through emails, communications, phone calls from my listeners. Glad the DWR stepped in and did a fine job. If Honey had not seen that person, they would have let the dam go. So let's remember that when that story, you start to hear that story. And it's documented. We have all the YouTubes. You can hear his story. He tells it 2 times, once at a meeting where I was at, and another one where he's at a church that's a little bit more expanded on the church one. It's an excellent, excellent listen. He's a great speaker, by the way. We should have him come to the meetings. He's absolutely outstanding. So anyway, anything else about any other? Yes, sir. Ron. Ken, sorry. And welcome, Michael and Ken. Let me give you this.
I regularly go to the California Water Commission meetings downtown for mainly the Prop 1 water storage money, the water storage investment program, to monitor what's going on there. But one day I went down, there just happened to be the report from staff to the Water Commission on Oroville Dam. And it was way worse than we thought. To me, the big deal was beyond the possible loss of portions of the dam, the accumulation of debris in the basin below the dam was backing up into the power plant. And they called in long reach excavators from the western 4 states. They had, I forget the number, 30 or something. And they scooped out 1 million cubic yards of stuff of debris to save the power plant. Now, if they hadn't done that in a timely way, the water would have gone in and flooded the power plant from the bottom to the top as the reverse flow of the water goes into the power plant. And it would have flooded all the relays, all the generators, all the electrical, would have been flooded with silt. And it would have been taken between 1 and 2 years to get the power plant back online. So that was a really big deal that I never heard about in the news.
Why don't you maybe take a second and tell them why you were at that meeting, because this is important, Jerry Brown. Did I say Jerry Brown? I did, didn't I?
I'm chairman of the Auburn Dam Council, and I was monitoring the water storage investment program. That's that $2.7 billion out of the $7.7 billion that was passed in Prop 1 in 2014 for supposedly for water storage. The other $5 billion was going to conservancies and delta restoration stuff and special projects, special projects. Some of it went to $500 million, went up for, they call it river restoration, but it was actually the removal of the dams on the Klamath River, so $500 million for that. But I was going to, we thought about submitting the Auburn Dam as a project under the WSIP, the Water Storage Investment Program, but we didn't want to be seen as competing with sites, particularly with sites, because they're kind of pretty far along, they're high on the list, and even though it doesn't do the stuff that Auburn would do, it doesn't ever come close. Auburn's a better project than all the rest of them almost put together. But Auburn Dam didn't make it to the CalFed list in the early 2000s, so nobody's looking at it. It didn't get on the list for various reasons, political reasons. So they think it's a dead project. One other thing I was going to say about that just slipped my mind. But it's not, to us, it's not a dead project because I went to the American River Authority meeting this afternoon in Auburn. They were created to build the Auburn Dam. They were created in the early 80s to build the dam. It's since been infiltrated with anti-dam people, and right now it's almost not quite a split. We're still kind of a minority on the American River Authority, but they also have they're redoing their agreement. It's a joint powers agreement El Dorado County, Placer County, San Joaquin County, and a public member. So anyhow, I haven't read, I just picked it up this afternoon, haven't read the new proposed agreement for the Joint Powers Authority, but we don't think it's dead, and I actually asked the authority for Monday this afternoon to do our modeling study, which would be the first phase of updating the Bureau of Reclamation's work in 2006. So pray for the Auburn Dam.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you, Ken. I brought this up so that we could understand something. Now I'm going to somebody with another question. I didn't plant this question in his head, by the way, but I want to make mention it was Jerry Brown who stopped that dam in 1981, 82-ish.
My question is, Paul, on your trips to the dam and everything, or to these meetings, have you ever heard them talk about the headworks yet, any repairs? And that's all the radial gates. Right. I've never heard them. They bypassed that question several times. So.
Okay, the head gates are on the main spillway, and they were in danger of being lost on the 12th. And what would have happened on that dam failure, if you were here at the Liberty Tour and you heard Scott Cahill talk about this, and what we call overtopping, which is what I was actually witnessing that day, where the water was going over the spillway, sheeting over. It's called overtopping. The dam was about to really literally overtop on top of the dam, the big dam. They don't want to tell you that. But what would have happened had the head cutting continued, that concrete weir would have collapsed, and the dirt that's underneath that is fill dirt that was brought in when they originally built the dam to connect basically one mountaintop to another. We would have lost that in about 30 minutes. A 1,600-foot wide, 30-foot high, 1,600 feet wide wall of water would have come down. And it would easily have carved out about another, probably down to about 25-30% of the top of the water of the reservoir would have been taken down. Did they mention this in that meeting by chance?
No, but they did mention something else. There's a bunch of towers, that head cutting that was moving back up towards the dam. There's electrical towers, big towers there that would carry the electricity out of the power plant. And PG&E couldn't turn it off fast, couldn't have turned it off fast enough, and they were afraid they were going to lose those towers as well as the power plant. So.
And what would have? And they'd have to have had that to operate the gates. So the radial gates at the head spillway there, they would have quickly lost that. That concrete thing that I was standing on out there would have gone probably in a half an hour. And then the main gates on the spillway would have gone. And it's just one thing after another. It's, total dam failure is what it's called in the business. And that's what was starting to happen. And I was getting weird reports, and you may have followed up on the story that we wrote for Agenda 21 Radio. It's a massive story, and it's been kind of an amazing journey, if you will, with the story being written. And then we put out some interviews on various radio shows. But I got a call, several calls, from people at the dam. One of them was saying that they were taking nuclear weapons out of the dam. And that was on the evening, late in the evening, that they had brought in 30-some trucks with nuclear weapons. And I'm like going, okay, well, we'll put that on the filing cabinet over here, with everything else happening. But as it turns out, further research, they have quite a research facility in the dam underneath the electrical power plant and in that area. And it's nuclear related because we do know that this is the only dam that we're aware of that actually tests the water coming out of the Feather River for nuclear radiation. Bet you didn't know that one. Ricky, did you know that? Oh, Ricky knew it. Did I give away a source? Yeah, okay. So Ricky was the test case. No, that's Bill back there saying that. I could hear it. Anyway, so it took us quite a while to suss out the real information on it, because we'd had information about that activity going on for several days following. And of course, I wasn't going to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because I'm thinking, oh, right, nuclear, they'll really think the tinfoil hat's on, right? And so as it turned out, some incredible people came forward to me, and we're talking people with PhDs and things like that from various scientific labs around the nation, and one of them offshore that confirmed what we were told. Not only that, but they confirmed that the design was not nuclear weapons. So I kept on asking and kept on asking, what were they then? And it came down to these things known as ADMs, atomic demolition munitions. Now, there are people who, in this room, who understand that. I'm not going to point them out, but I had to have it explained to me exactly what it was. And these are demolition munitions designed to blow up dams. They came out of the Cold War in the 50s and 60s, and people actually trained with them in Europe, especially because they were afraid of the Russians coming in to Europe. And the Polga Gap was one area. And they made these canisters. They stand about this tall. Some of them are even smaller. And they're designed to actually blow up dams and large bridges and things like that. So we had those identified to us that was in the dam. Now, I'm going to stop it right there. You can use your own imagination. If you're taking out the north side of the dam, you're letting it go, which I want to really congratulate Sheriff Honey on his delivery of this information. It's perfectly administratively correct. He does a fantastic job in his presentation. But there's a lot to be learned from what he says. Let me put it to you that way. And it's pretty easy to connect the dots, that if you're only given an hour to evacuate a lot of people, and oh, by the way, it's an accident that you find out that's an hour, that would probably give cause to a really, really, really good detective who's in law enforcement to say, why did they wait so long and not tell everybody and put people in danger in the public like that? You have to think of that. But if you think globally, and you think of Jerry Brown, and you start putting pieces of the puzzle, things start to make a little bit better sense. And that's a very terrifying thought. I can remember that when I was, after Oroville, I went to Prospect High School as a principal, and he knows what that is. And that was September 11, 2001. And I came to school after hearing all the messages and information to hysterical teachers who were saying they're going to take the dam down, they're going to take the dam down, they're going to blow up Oroville Dam. And I'll never forget, I looked at them and I said, terrorists taking down the Oroville Dam? I said, do you know how many nuclear weapons that would take? That was in 2001 I said that. I'll never forget, because you know, you always remember where you're at, right? On a date like 2001. That's been ringing in my head quite a bit. Okay, let's see. A couple of other things. Donald Trump, alive and well. Alive and well. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, I admittedly so I talk to the Trump people, and they even call me sometimes, and I'm really looking forward to something of a big nature in one of our conversations that will come up. But he's doing fine. And for those of you that are really anxious about getting these criminals behind bars, patience. It's only, what is his 5th month? And he's got to get the administration, his administration, underneath him. But they're working on it. And I will say this. I'll say two words, because I always like to say this about my story about the voter fraud and all that stuff that's being actively investigated in California by the Trump administration. And Katie Grimes is a part of it, Linda Payne, election integrity, they're all part of it. I'm sort of outing them now, but it's with their permission. But recently, a lot of us have been really, really, really concerned, and George Runner kind of mentioned it, about how Jerry has been comporting himself as El Presidente, right? That's all for show and all by design. However, I was just given the word, and you're getting the inside word. Jerry will come to Jesus. Now, listen, all I can say is, say hallelujah, brother. It's just, but you just have to wait. Things are happening. The wheels are turning. And it's just kind of, just watch the whole thing play out. You know, from my perspective, when I see things happening, it's like, wow. Because you hear something 6 months ago, and all of a sudden today it's playing out, and going, I can't believe these things are happening. So you have to be patient. But you notice when these clowns, I almost called them clowns, like I'm on the radio or something. When these people are doing things that you don't like and you don't understand, I can tell you that he doesn't like, and he does understand it. So, and so does the rest of his people. And Jeff Sessions is doing an outstanding job. And again, one of the things I like to tell people is the best leadership is the leadership you never see. And it's also the best kind of law enforcement, if you think about it. But he's rolling things back. He rolled back a lot of the things dealing with Castro's Cuba and that totalitarian state. You saw that. There's a lot of things that are going to start happening. And I can tell you, like I say on the radio show all the time, down there in the Capitol Dome, and they listen to me, I say the proctologist has arrived. And I really mean that. It's like there's a team of proctologists. Okay, the shooting of the representatives. As part of the globalist plan to destroy and break us down culturally, this is all part of the gig. And those of you that have ever studied how countries fail and falter and how they're brought down, they always get to a point through violence where they start killing off the politicians. And what happened the other day, and I was on the radio live with this, and I was kind of coaching people about when you're seeing these live things play out, there's certain things you'll never hear again that will never come out in the mainstream media, except for the one time when you're sitting there listening to it in real life. So that's the time in which you really have to pay attention about some of the details. Here's the detail that caught me the most. Right away, the narrative was there's a shooting, and the shooter has an AR-15. Why? Because the bullets sounded like an AR-15, and it was Rand Paul who was saying it's all like a AR-15. We know it's an AR-15 because the sound, he's trying to get me to shut up, so all right, oh, that's fine. It was Rand Paul who said, I know it was an AR-15 because somebody told me so. And that's where the narrative started, and of course, the media got all over the AR-15. Now, I don't know about you, but it wasn't an AR-15, it was an SKS. What is that, Jason? What is that? What's the other model number? What's that called, really? SKS? The Chinese variety of the AK-47? It's got a what? They said it was the Chinese one, but yes, ma'am, you had a question?
I moved up here to Oroville, and in 2 weeks I had to evacuate to this beautiful community. Freaked me out. I left. I'm still wanting to know what's actually being done. Any investigation and accountability with that Livermore lab that's in there. Everything that you talked about and you really
Right.
into it, I mean, what kind of safety do we have? I mean, the intent of what wants to take that dam out with the leakage and all the tunnels and everything, I mean, I never knew it'd be part of a fear pouring.
We never knew that either, and we lived here for years. She's Bill, I'll stop in a minute, okay? Okay. Okay, the question is that she's concerned about the state of the dam. You've been hearing about the Lawrence Livermore stuff in the bottom of the dam and the safety of all of our lives. Well, and you know, I would love to be able to give you a good answer about the safety of our lives. I can't because we're getting no truth from these people. Bald-faced lies every time they turn around. And I can say that just freely. And if you go and listen to Sheriff Honey's account, right, and because you can tell he has a hard time believing anything they're saying too. I think it's kind of obvious. So what do you do in that situation? And you have to try and set up a network of people that are around you, people that can help you, understand what's going on around the dam and so on. Right now, it seems to be in a fairly safe state because the water level is down, but it's not completely out of the woods even now as it sits. Because they just haven't taken care of the dam over time. So now as far as the legal end of it, I am not at liberty to say about investigations or anything like that I've been told about. I just can't say it. But I dig around all the time, and there are eyes going on there. And so that's all I can say right now. But it is out of control, and it's an out of control situation, just like it was an out of control dam situation. But the key thing will be what's going to happen when we have the next big rainstorms come in, and when they have that spillway completed. How's that going to look? How's that going to look? So. The CSF. Well, the big thing that comes up, and the gentleman over here earlier said it, that in February, and this is why all this story really starts to kind of fall apart. And I got to tell you, Scott Cahill, one of the leading experts in dams in the nation, if not the world, has no clue what's going on over here. It doesn't make any sense to him. Period. End of sentence. None of it makes sense. And neither does it. You talked to Dr. B from Cal Berkeley. None of it makes sense to him, and he is the world's leading expert in dams. So, the conclusions are when the facts start to roll in and you match it with their behavior and their activities, you know what I'm saying. It's a lot of bizarre stuff going on. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Are they ever going to do anything about Hillary Clinton and all these people instead of keep going after Trump? Why aren't they doing something about them?
Yes, they are. And the first thing is the person that I said was going to be the throwaway person 6-7 months ago, and that's Loretta Lynch. She's basically the one who's going to be thrown to the wolves originally, and then it's going to work its way up the food chain. So these things are happening. They haven't forgotten about this. Any other questions? Any other questions? Terror attacks. Anyway, I'll tell you about go back to the shooting thing. Turned out that it was an AK-47 style gun, which has a larger shell, that was doing the shooting. The man came for soft targets. He didn't realize there were 2 officers there with guns. And had those officers not been there, what would have happened is probably killed maybe 10 or 12 Republicans right up front. So once again, the Second Amendment prevailed, which is a good thing. Terror attacks. The terror attacks were the ones that are going on now. We had another one today in France, the Champs-Élysées. Have you probably heard about that? So every single day you can start to bank on some sort of terror attack around the world now from ISIS. The ship, the Fitzgerald, very strange that you have a first-class Navy frigate or destroyer with one of the best and most powerful radar systems that just can't seem to spot that massively big cargo container. Pretty odd. The USS Stark, a friend of mine, he used to work for a major company down in Southern California, and he's the inventor of the Phalanx missile defense system. You're probably aware of it. It's that where you see the white cones on ships and they have a Gatling gun. We were attending a swim meet back in 1987, and we were talking about the weekend swims and all that. So we come back the next day, and I asked his daughter, Natalie, I said, where's your dad? Oh, they came and got him in the middle of the night. We don't know where he's at. He ended up being on the deck of the Stark, being part of the investigation with the crew and everybody who was there who kind of blew their assignment. And he walked over and he started looking at the consoles and the controls, and he said, okay, I'm just checking it out for you, but I walk over here and I look at this little thing that's got a red thing over it, cover, and there's a switch. The switch was off. So they had no way to defend themselves. I don't know if the switch was off for the radar or what, but it's a pretty big hole. Okay, Liberty Tour number 7 will happen in October. We have a sponsor for it, and we're very excited about it. We were asked today and approached today, we have to move forward with the Liberty Tours. So we're going to be doing that. And that's about it. That's all. Any other questions? Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. The reason to take down dams is what's known as rewilding. It's part of Agenda 21. They want to push you off your land, take your property, and put you in stack and pack housing, basically, and turn the land back over to the wildlife. It's called rewilding. And right now, every day, the Department of Fish and Wildlife goes marching off to work on the rewilding program. It's actually happening. Wildlife corridors and things like that. So it's very far along, but this is the kind of stuff you need to be aware of, obviously, and they fully intend to do this, and so Jerry Brown fully intends to take down dams, including Englebright up here. He's already committed to do that. He's up there with the Klamath. He brought in Bruce Babbitt, who's the former Secretary of the Interior under Bill Clinton, and they invented taking down the dams with Bill Clinton and a few other people during the Clinton in the Clinton administration. That runs you off your land and they get the land. It's called communism. There's another word for it called communism. Go buy another gun. I tell people to get guns. Yes, ma'am. The Stark. No, this one just now. 7 people. Yeah, 7 sailors died in their berthing quarters. The Stark, I think, had 27 die. So, okay, thank you very much.